The Witch of Willow Manor, she never lets you go. 1. The deal of a lifetime. It started with a listing on Craigslist. My best friend Tom was on the hunt for a place to call home, somewhere cheap but with character. When he found an ad for an old manor in rural Pennsylvania, it seemed too good to be true. Historic Willow Manor, 6 bedrooms, 3 baths, $500 a month, the ad read. The photos showed a towering, ivy-covered mansion straight out of a Gothic horror story. Despite my reservations, Tom was ecstatic. 2. Arrival at dusk. We arrived late in the evening, and the house was eerie in the moonlight. The ivy-covered exterior loomed like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Inside, the furniture was covered in white sheets and the air smelled faintly sweet, like honeysuckle left to rot. Tom laughed it off. "This place has soul," he said, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. 3. The first night. That night, I woke to a scratching sound in the walls. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, more insistent. I sat up in bed, straining to hear, when it stopped suddenly. Then from the far corner of the room, I heard a whisper. It was too faint to make out words, but it was unmistakably a voice. The basement door. The next morning, we explored the house. In the kitchen, we found a door to the basement, padlocked shut. The lock was old and rusted, the kind you'd see on something meant to stay closed forever. "Let's leave that alone," I said, but Tom was already rattling the lock, testing its strength. "Later," he said with a grin. 5. The sweet scent. Intensifies by the second night, the sweet smell had grown stronger. It seemed to cling to everything, the air, our clothes, even our skin. I woke again in the middle of the night, this time to the sound of footsteps pacing outside my room. I called out to Tom, but there was no answer. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty. 6. Breaking into the basement. Tom couldn't resist his curiosity. The next day we went to a hardware store and bought bolt cutters. The basement was cold and damp, the air thick with mildew. On the shelves we found jars filled with strange objects, fingers, teeth, small shoes. And at the far end of the room was a small wooden door, carved with strange symbols. 7. The whispering grows. That night the whispers returned, louder this time. They seemed to come from every direction, inside the walls, the floor, even the furniture. Tom brushed it off as old house noises, but I knew better. 8. The Harper Family Journal. We visited the local library and found a journal written by Abigail Harper, the last resident of the manor. Her entries grew more frantic over time, describing whispers in the walls and the sweet smell that never went away. Her final entry read, "The door won't stay shut. The whispers are everywhere. She demands another offering. I can't protect them anymore." The shadow figure. That night, as I sat in the living room, I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. A shadow slipped through the doorway and disappeared into the kitchen. When I followed, the room was empty, but the air was freezing. 10. Tom's descent. Tom became obsessed with the basement. He spent hours down there sitting cross-legged in front of the wooden door. He began muttering under his breath, words I couldn't understand. 11. The attic discovery. I decided to explore the attic. Amid the dusty trunks and rotting furniture, I found a journal belonging to Abigail Harper. Her words were frantic, filled with terror. She wrote about the witch, a presence that demanded sacrifices, luring its victims with the sweet scent of honeysuckle. 12. The woman in the mirror. Later that night, I caught sight of something in the bathroom mirror, a gaunt, hollow-eyed figure standing behind me. When I spun around, the room was empty, but the air was heavy, suffocating. 13. Symbols on the walls. One morning I woke to find strange symbols carved into the walls of my bedroom. They matched the ones on the wooden door in the basement. Tom simply smiled when I showed him. "She's marking us," he said. 14. A neighbor's warning. Desperate for answers, I drove to the nearest neighbor. The elderly woman's face turned pale when I mentioned Willow Manor. "She won't stop," she said. "Not until she gets what she wants." 15. Tom's sacrifice. Tom became convinced he could appease the witch. One night I found him in the kitchen, holding a knife. "She needs blood," he said, his voice eerily calm. 16. The door opens. The wooden door in the basement burst open, revealing a swirling void of darkness. From it emerged a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. 17. The collapse. The house began to shake, the walls groaning as if alive. I ran upstairs, dodging falling debris, and leaped out a window just as the house collapsed behind me. 18. The ruins. The next morning, all that remained of Willow Manor was a smoldering pile of rubble. Tom's body was never found. 19. The lingering scent. Months later, I moved to a new city, but the sweet smell of honeysuckle followed me, creeping into my apartment late at night. 20. She always finds you. One night, I woke to whispers in the corner of my room. The shadows began to move, thickening and gathering. "She's coming," a voice whispered. 21. The whispers return. After months of trying to live a normal life, the whispers came back. They started softly, like a faint murmur in the back of my mind. At first, I thought I was imagining things, but then they grew louder, persistent, demanding, impossible to ignore. I began to dream of the house. In my dreams, it was whole again. The wooden door in the basement wide open, the void beyond it calling my name. Sometimes I saw Tom standing there, his eyes hollow and his body withered, as if the house had taken pieces of him and left only a shell. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. The scent of honeysuckle filled my apartment, clinging to my clothes and skin, no matter how much I scrubbed. I knew then that I hadn't escaped. The house, or whatever lived inside it, still had its hooks in me. 22. Tom's ghost. One night, as I sat in the darkened living room of my apartment, I saw him. Tom. He was standing in the corner, his body translucent and his face gaunt. "You shouldn't have left," he said, his voice weak and hollow. "She doesn't forget. She doesn't forgive." I wanted to speak, to ask him what he meant, but my voice caught in my throat. Tom stepped closer, and as he did, I noticed something horrifying. His skin wasn't just pale. It was cracked, like old porcelain, and through the cracks I could see darkness, the same swirling void that had taken him. "She's not done with us," he whispered. "You have to go back. Finish it." And then he was gone, leaving behind only the scent of honeysuckle and the faint echo of whispers. 23. The return to Willow Manor. I didn't want to go back, but I didn't have a choice. The whispers grew louder with each passing day, and the shadows in my apartment seemed to move of their own accord. I was losing my mind, just like Tom had. So one cold, gray morning, I packed a bag and drove back to the ruins of Willow Manor. The house was gone, reduced to rubble and overgrown with weeds, but the basement entrance was still there, hidden beneath a layer of vines and debris. As I descended the crumbling stairs, the air grew colder. The whispers surrounded me, louder than ever, filling the space with a chaotic chorus of voices. And then I saw it, the wooden door. It shouldn't have been there. It had been destroyed when the house collapsed. But here it was, whole and intact, the symbols on its surface glowing faintly. 24. The final ritual. The journal was in my bag, the only thing I had left from Abigail Harper. Her final entry had included a ritual, a way to seal the witch back into the void. But it came with a warning. The price is steep. She will not go willingly. I stood in front of the door, the journal open in my trembling hands. The air around me grew heavy, pressing down on my chest. And then the door creaked open, revealing the swirling darkness within. She emerged slowly, her form shrouded in shadows. Her eyes burned like embers, and her claws scraped against the stone floor as she stepped forward. "You can't stop me," she hissed, her voice a mixture of 1,000 whispers. "You are mine." I began to chant the words from the journal, my voice shaking but steady. The symbols on the door began to glow brighter, and the witch screamed, her form twisting and writhing as the void pulled at her. The jars on the shelves shattered, their contents spilling onto the floor. The house itself seemed to groan, the walls trembling as the void grew stronger, pulling everything toward it. But the witch wasn't going quietly. She lunged at me, her claws grazing my arm. The pain was searing, but I didn't stop chanting. 25, the sacrifice. As the final words left my lips, the void roared to life, its pull stronger than ever. The witch let out a final, bone-chilling scream as she was dragged back into the darkness. The door slammed shut, the symbols on its surface glowing brightly before fading into nothingness. The whispers stopped. The air grew still. For a moment, I thought it was over. But then I felt it. A pull. Faint at first, but growing stronger. The void wasn't done. It wanted me. I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. The pull grew stronger, dragging me toward the door. I clawed at the ground, screaming, but it was no use. The journal slipped from my hands, and I saw it fall into the void, swallowed by the darkness. And then, just as I was about to be pulled in, I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned to see Tom, or what was left of him. His face was calm, almost peaceful. "Go," he said. "I'll take your place." Before I could protest, he stepped into the void. The pull vanished, and the door slammed shut for the final time. 26. A quiet life. I stumbled out of the basement as the sun rose over the ruins of Willow Manor. The air was fresh, free of the cloying scent of honeysuckle. The whispers were gone. For months, I tried to rebuild my life. I moved far away, started a new job, and tried to forget what had happened. But the memories lingered, and so did the scars on my arm. Thin, jagged lines where the witch's claws had grazed me. I thought I was free. 27. She always comes back. One night as I lay in bed, I smelled it again. That sweet, sickly scent of honeysuckle. My heart raced and I sat up, scanning the room. The shadows in the corner began to move, thickening and gathering. And then I heard it. A whisper, soft and seductive. "She's coming," it said. I realized then that you can't escape her. The witch doesn't just haunt a house, she haunts people. And no matter how far I run, no matter what I do, she'll always find me. She always does.